First, let's bring in our foreign policy panel.
Ruthie Bloom is a former Netanyahu advisor, and we have Behnam Ben Taleblu. He is the senior director and senior fellow of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Good morning.
All right. Good morning, guys. Let's talk a little bit about Russian collusion here. Central figure and Donald Trump adversary James Comey is now formally charged with giving false statements and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. The president posting this on Truth Social. Justice in America, one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to, is James Comey, the former corrupt head of the FBI.
Ruthie, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts really, in a nutshell, that what goes around comes around. And I think that President Trump has been trying to illustrate that since he re-entered the White House in January.
And Ben, your thoughts on what's going on here?
Yeah, I think, well, one could say that it's the domestic politics of our foreign policy and the foreign policy of our domestic politics. But indeed, those who speak about collusion, those who say the big questions of what did the president know and when did he know it, should now really be asking, well, what did Comey know and when did he really know it? And I think this case that you just mentioned in Comey's testimony and really what all eyes are on D.C. now will actually prove that.
And let me just remind folks, it's been nearly 10 years since all of this has taken place, and this was under, under Trump at the time during his first term. But Ruthie, can you believe what we're seeing and hearing in terms of how this is playing out all this time? And Comey has said, no, it wasn't me. I knew nothing. I did nothing. I'm innocent.
Right. Well, he's clearly not. Okay, I'm not a judge, but what we've seen over the last year, it's been clear that he did know. And, this is one of the problems. President Trump often speaks about the deep state, as does, I'm in Israel, and the same thing with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And we can see that in action in both countries. And I think it's very important to hold accountable the people who are lying, who are also, these are people who were trying to ruin President Trump's life. It's not just political, okay? It's also personal. And it's smearing somebody for something that is clearly a lie, and now it's been proven to be a lie. And yes, he should be held accountable.
Matthew Colangelo was a senior official in the Biden DOJ. He left that position to work for Alvin Bragg here in the New York field office, and then went after President Trump. And folks at the time said it was a conspiracy theory to think that that was anything other than President Biden and the Biden administration getting its hands dirty in investigating and prosecuting Donald Trump. When it comes to folks now saying that this is what President Trump is doing, do they have any hill to stand on?
Behnam?
Well, again, the problem is those who pointed a finger about the president currently weaponizing the justice system, or allege that the president is weaponizing the justice system, or as you may have seen over the past 24 hours, have made no qualm or have offered no shortage of allusions to this being like a third world country where there is no separate justice system and it's weaponized and it's really a tool of the president, really have missed exactly what you mentioned that happened in the preceding 3 to 4 years during the Biden administration. So certainly here I do agree with Ruthie. What comes around does indeed go around.
Yeah, and we're going to move on, but overall, think about the news, the headlines that were dominated with these allegations from Comey, and now present day. We'll see how the news is going to play out, what we're going to find out in terms of these 2 counts that are against him. But we're going to move on to this. Iran and Russia, they are reportedly signing a $25 billion agreement to build 4 nuclear power plants in Iran. Break this down for us, Ruthie.
Well, first of all, we've seen that President Trump joined Israel in what he called the 12-day war against the Iranian nuclear facilities. We also heard President Trump yesterday at the United Nations General Assembly blast European countries for buying Russian oil when they're pretending to be on the side of Ukraine and to try to end the war in Ukraine. What we know now, we have two very dangerous bad actors working together. That's never a good thing. And I think it was very important that President Trump called that out.
And Behnam, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, just 2 cents here real quick. This is essentially the bad boys club, and these are the state threats that will define the threats we in the West, and that means America, Israel, and even some of our transatlantic partners will be facing in the 21st century. And that is Russia, China, North Korea, Iran at the state level. And at the non-state level, it's the axis of resistance. It's the constellation of terror groups loyal to the Islamic Republic of Iran that Ruthie knows too well, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. And that one linkage between the axis of aggressors and the axis of resistance is the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism, the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's why Trump was right at the UNGA to state that the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism cannot be permitted to get nuclear weapons. And now, while this is a deal for allegedly nuclear power and reactors, which is totally separate from enrichment, nonetheless, when you have these two anti-American revisionist states cooperating like this, it's not going to be anything good coming up. And by the way, keep your eyes on 2 or 3 p.m. in New York, where Russia, which is one of Iran's major lawyers on the UN Security Council, is going to be offering a resolution in an attempt to stop the restoration of UN sanctions again. So when they do collaborate, nothing good comes out of it. And Washington and our partners need to be focused like a hawk on this issue and ready to stop it.
Well, Behnam and Ruthie, let's stay with Russia. President Trump making bold statements about the war in Ukraine, keeping sanctions against Russia on the table now. Take a listen.
In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures.
You know, Ruthie, this is something the president spoke about with the president of Turkey yesterday at the White House, and you just saw him there condemning NATO countries, saying, look, you are only funding Russia's war in Ukraine by continuing to purchase Russian oil. What kind of leverage does President Trump have here against these NATO countries that continue to do this, and as well as China and India? Is this something that these nations will listen to President Trump on?
Well, I think we've seen that President Trump has been pretty effective in scaring these countries by imposing tariffs, by threatening them. But, you mentioned his meeting with the president of Turkey. Speaking of bad actors, this is an Islamist regime that is playing both sides of the fence, trying to become the next Ottoman emperor. And we have to really watch him carefully. Erdogan in Syria in particular. And I'm just hoping that he hasn't pulled the wool over President Trump's eyes, because he is a genuinely bad actor who sides with the worst terrorists around the globe.
Sure. Well, President Trump was flipping tables for sure at the UN. But Behnam, we want to get your thoughts on the oil, different countries that are purchasing it from Russia, and how they are essentially helping fund terrorism.
Well, when you're looking at this, whether you're looking at it from the perspective of continental Europe, which, by the way, there's an oil problem as well as a gas problem or an overall Russian energy problem there. We have to make sure that us and our partners aren't, talking out of two different sides of our mouth here. We can't talk about a just and lasting peace to the conflict in Ukraine, or even, as is more realistic now these days, a ceasefire or, a locked-in stalemate to the conflict in Ukraine, where one party is really helping underwrite the aggressor. And the aggressor, make no mistake, is Putin, who does use Iranian weaponry, who does use Chinese tech, who does use North Korean tech to continue the war machine and target European and even European civilians and critical infrastructure by staying in the fight now this long against the Ukrainian people. And on the flip side, we have partners further away, for example, which are essential to countering countries like India, which is the world's China, which is the world's largest democracy, and that's India. And India does, unfortunately, still buy Russian energy. That's a major political issue between New Delhi and Washington right now. And it's really a shame that New Delhi's offer to lessen its dependence on Russian energy is really an offer to buy, more or different amounts of Iranian energy. So that's, from falling, that's like going from bad to worse.
Well, sure. Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he is addressing the United Nations today. Ruthie, what are we expecting that he'll say?
Well, what we're expecting he'll say, first of all, I think he's going to mimic President Trump to some extent, and I think he was happy to be able to come after President Trump's speech so that he understood what he was supposedly allowed to say, or how much he could excoriate the UN delegates. And I think President Trump certainly showed him that nothing's off limits. And we also know that many delegates are going to walk out and not listen to the speech. But what I thought was very interesting is that Netanyahu ordered the army to put up loudspeakers in Gaza so that the Gazans and soldiers could hear his speech. What this indicates to me, and if it does happen, because of course, as everything else in Israel, there's a huge now, controversy over that. But what I think it indicates that he's probably going to devote part of his speech, other than, telling the world about the atrocities of October 7th, he's going to make an appeal to Gazans to overthrow Hamas. He's going to say, we're on your side and help us do this. I have that feeling that that's the purpose of those loudspeakers.
Sure. Well, we appreciate the expertise from both of you, Ruthie Bloom and Behnam Ben Taleblu. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Have a good weekend.
You too.
You too. Thank you so much.